Next up, we're going to have a look at the data with Ash. Ash, how are things in the UK today?
Beautiful, mate. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it's been great now for a few weeks, and hopefully it will continue right through summer.
Mate, what's the data telling us? What's going to happen this week?
Oh, it's an interesting one again in some respects, without really telling us anything extreme. So nothing has shifted sufficiently enough to say now's the time to pull the trigger. Now we know that the COT data doesn't really kind of give us a timing. It's not a timing tool per se. But I agree completely with Alexis on looking for that unemployment data to really give us a hint of when the dollar might start to rise. And I also agree with Julian about looking for the signals from the bond market. And the fact that you were both talking about the Canadian dollar, it wasn't going to be the one I was going to discuss, but because it really is a basket of two or three that we could touch on, the Canadian dollar was in there. So I think we can look at the Canadian dollar. And one of the reasons that the Canadian dollar might actually be the best is that at least it does have some confluence between the COT data and the seasonality. And what the kind of macro picture is suggesting is that we might well get some dollar strength. Now, the COT data is, as I say, not saying the timing's there yet. And I think we can probably wait for the COT data to give us that timing because the dollar has been so beaten up. If we see some really extreme buying, even though it will happen on the Tuesday of the week and we won't get the data until Friday, it will give us probably enough of a clue that that particular trend will probably last quite some time. So the dollar hasn't started to boost yet, but the Canadian dollar does look weak. So if we're starting to kind of pick maybe a basket of currencies that might be the best against the dollar, if we wanted to buy the dollar and versus selling something else, the Canadian dollar does fall into that particular category. The commercials from last week didn't add to their longs, and they're just a little bit more negative on their longs, but they're also not really adding to their short positions either. So, back to the timing thing, it's not necessarily saying now's the time to pull the trigger, but on the whole, the longer term picture here does see the index on the COT report down at the zero line, and we can see what tends to happen. You know, when you get that zero hit, it does usually indicate that there is either a downward move coming, or there is a downward move in existence. So we are anticipating that there will be a downward move in the Canadian dollar, and if we look at the net longs versus the net shorts, then the net shorts have started to spike to the upside. Okay, it didn't really kind of follow through this week, but on the whole, you know, what we've really seen over the last 3 months is quite a lot of selling pressure with the Canadian dollar, as we see this red line start to push to the upside. And the reason that the Canadian dollar would maybe be the one that we should look at for now would be because of the seasonal pattern. So where the COT data might give us two or three others, the seasonal pattern in the Canadian dollar might well be the better one to look for downside. And the reason is that this is where we see June and this is where we see July. And it would suggest that sometime in around about the second week of June, third week of June, which is from this week to next week, we do see some downside, which would potentially take us right the way through to July. So if we focus on the seasonals, it would suggest maybe looking for some Canadian dollar weakness. If we focus on the COT data would support the Canadian dollar weakness. And if we were to look at the fundamentals, you might want to wait until, you know, if you're looking for a real trigger, there's some CPI data from Canada on Wednesday. That might be a decent time to start thinking about the short. It's possible that it moves before that, and there might be an opportunity to get in and get safe before that CPI data. Or it might be that it goes sideways before that, meaning that we can wait for that CPI data to be released before we look for the potential shorts in the Canadian dollar. So just to summarize, we are looking at a potential dollar long. And with that, we can choose a basket of currencies to go against. And this week, it's suggesting that that particular currency would most likely be the Canadian dollar.
Cheers, mate. If they want extra information on COTS, seasonals, fundamentals, you've got your broadcast group, right, where all that stuff is covered. But for now, Canadian dollar is your one. Thank you for that very much, Ash. Much appreciated.